Good morning, this is Daybreak, and thank you for staying with us. The hashtag on X, formerly Twitter, is Daybreak. The SMS code is 22422 at Citizen TV Kenya and at Ayub Abdikadir. We will sample your feedback here on the broadcast. Dr. John Mutunga is the MP representing Tigania West constituency, as well as the chair of the National Assembly's Agriculture Committee. Honorable Emmanuel Wangwe is the Navajo Member of Parliament, the sponsor of the bill now passed by Parliament and is at the Senate. And Charles Atiang is the chairperson of the Kenya Association of Sugar and Allied Products. Honorable Wangwe is on you. And a lot, has been raised by Charles here in regards to the question of zoning, which has been very problematic. Talk to me about this and how can this be addressed? Because there are some who are in support of the zoning and some who are against. But here comes your bill. What's the statement that the bill says, if signed into law, will become an act? And how does it address that problem of zoning, which has been the point of conflict between many farmers?
Thank you. I want to say my bill does not propose zoning. No. Instead, what the main problem has been a farmer being contracted to a particular miller. And what we have seen is that a miller goes under in terms of financial obligations. So a farmer is left on his own with Ken in the farm. And personally, myself, I began farming. My contract reached 1984 when I was first registered as a farmer with Mumia Sugar. So it really brings a lot of issue in terms of where does this farmer go. So what has happened, or what is being proposed in my bill, is the issue of catchment areas. A catchment area brings a conglomerate of factories together where we have an option. We say, if this factory is going under, can we then supply it to B? Can we take it to C? Can we take it to D? So it leaves a farmer with options. When you look at the bill, it proposes contractual farming, meaning you are going to do a contract to supply and deliver cane. But it's not to a particular miller. It's not tying you that to this miller. It's to the catchment. Meaning, if, for example, I take the catchment of Lower Western, which is putting together Butali Sugar, West Kenya, Mumias, Olepito, and Busia, what are the chances that all the 5 factories will collapse at once? The chance is nil. You will always get one factory that's collapsing at a time. So leaving you with room to take cane to everywhere, and any of the 4 factories. And why are we doing this? We are doing this because we have some resources, which this conglomeration of millers will be accessing through in the Sugar Development Fund to develop and grow cane. What is it that, what are the chances that when a farmer now, should he access that loan of cane from miller A, will be able to pay? You can only be able to pay if you can be checked at the point of receiving back your money. So that is why we are saying, if you are in one common catchment, you are playing the same cane production, meaning I'm a custodian of this miller, this miller is a custodian of the next miller, and should I have a debt with this farmer, if he's coming to me to supply cane, I should now be able to ask miller B, to share credit, does this farmer owe you anything? If he does, then we seek within ourselves and agree. That's the essence of the catchment areas. Also, the catchment area, apart from providing the space for cane deliveries, it will be used to get a director to represent those farmers. Because he's still under one director. This catchment area is under one director. So anything that is happening to these factories, the person responsible is that one farmer who is one director at the board. Yes. And
I'll come to you, Charles. Honorable Dr. Mutunga, the cabinet also endorsed the writing off of debts public sugar mills owe the government following a parliamentary approval. This follows the Kisumu State Lodge meeting by the cabinet, which President William Ruto chaired, and acknowledged the 2 houses' resolutions on the reform sanctioned by the cabinet for a turnaround of the sugar sector. When you see this coming from the president and the cabinet, to be specific, does it signify what otherwise was a lacking goodwill to pull out these sugar millers and the farmers by extension out of debt and financial crisis?
Thank you very much, Abdikadir. This signifies goodwill from the government. I want to tell the Kenyan farmer that it is not really AFA that failed. It is lack of goodwill by the government to support AFA to do its function. Because when AFA was formed, it was never given a board. So every person within AFA again remained interim. They have been interim up to date. It's the present administration, the current administration, which has put together a board for AFA. So AFA now can recruit and can confirm the staff who are working with AFA, and therefore can also, shake the institution to function optimally. Now, there hasn't been support, significant support from the government into the sugar sector. Having made a decision to basically also, bring in, kind of lease some of those factories that are not functioning.
Yeah.
We've been able to discuss these factories. There was a treasury memo to the House, and then it was committed to us and the Committee on Finance. And we looked at it, and we engaged the sector stakeholders, and we gave a proposal on how it can be done. I want to report to the Kenyans that His Excellency the President has actually allowed the Treasury, to put in money to pay off the farmers. The 1.7 billion that we needed for farmers to be released has already been put in the budget. It's in the supplementary budget this time. That's a good gesture by the government to show that they are actually supporting the sugar industry. On the other hand, we have the farmers themselves. Now, we have the other aspects of support that the government is giving, which is trying to organize the entire sector to ensure that all aspects of management, all aspects of promotion, all aspects of development are well taken care of. And this is what was lacking in the sugar industry. And I'm sure that production and productivity will increase. There was an aspect of competition which was important in certain areas. Because we realized, like in South Nyanza, we had only one factory. When we went there, the farmers were very skeptical on supply of cane because the relationship between the farmers and the factory was not good. And it was being centered on the length of time the cane stays on the farm. Some farmers were saying, we can have cane stay on the farm for 48 months. 48 months means 4 years. It means a child goes to Form 1 and finishes Form 4 before the farmer can supply the cane. And this has been the major predicament in the sugar industry.
And what's the reason then for him not to supply if the harvesting is ready? Does it then mean...
The cane is ready, but the factory is not ready to absorb the cane.
Okay.
And then there has been loose arrangement. So what is important is to create competition. And that's why we brought in the issue of a contract. It's a cane supply contract. A farmer engaged. I said at the beginning that when you grow sugarcane in Kenya, you must take it to a factory. So there must be a relationship between the producer and the factory which will process the cane. Now, we did bring in strongly into the bill the cane supply contract and even increased on the penalties so that there is no we don't have people, operating outside the agreement, because that's been the problem. We've been having cane poaching, where you have a supply contract with a factory, and then somebody comes in here and offers a few coins above what you have already been contracted, and then farmers sell. I want to tell the Kenyan farmers that this is very dangerous now because the penalties in the bill are punitive. So when you engage a certain factory on a cane supply basis, you must supply to that factory. Again, there is the flexibility for you to supply to any factory that is within the catchment. Sometimes, in fact, the bill is not very specific. You must be able to sell to this particular, factory. The other issue that was also important, and we need to probably look at, is the length of time the cane stays on the farm vis-a-vis the varieties that we have. The kind of varieties we have in this country can supply cane, mature cane at 18 to 24 months.
Okay. Maximum 2 years.
Yes. But the Research Institute surprised us with news and information that there are varieties that can supply cane with sufficient sucrose content at 6 to 9 months. 6 to 9 months means you can grow cane twice a year in some parts of this country. And then on the other hand, they said they have another variety which can go between 8 and 12 months.
1 year.
So which means in a year you can offload to the factory, which means we can now increase production and productivity. That's what I was telling you. If we are producing 670,000 metric tons of sugar right now, and we need about 1.1 million metric tons of sugar, then it means if we can double that, we will be able to sell sugarcane. Sugar outside this country.
Okay, so we can meet our demand.
Yeah, we can meet our demand and sell.
Okay.
So if we really focus on these research products being offloaded to the farmer, and we we also enable the farmer to prepare the land well, manage the cane well, supply, do all those other operations that are needed to be done, it is possible for a farmer to offload the cane twice a year or once a year. And then, in this particular respect, we'll be able to supply, to produce enough sugar for this country.
Yes, Charles, you are up.
Yeah, thank you, Abdi. First, I also take my humble appreciation to His Excellency, the President, Dr. William Samoei Ruto, that for a long time we've been taken into circles, that the government is ready, cabinet paper was approved, they are writing off, but all this has just been stories. What was coming out was that the write-off was pegged into privatization. The government has tried all the effort. You try to privatize, they take you to court. That was one step that the government was trying to resolve the sugar issue. Like now, the pending farmers' arrears, the Parliament, this committee, the Finance Committee came round, they took the views of the farmers, they took back to Parliament, Parliament adopted. And I'm happy that President is giving his state of the nation tomorrow and asks on behalf of the farmers, hongera to His Excellency the President, for the write-off of 1.7 billion, which was accrued debts for the farmers in Nzoia, Muhoroni, Chemelil, Miwani, and Mumias across the board. This, to us, is a big step ahead. And number two, when we were with the President in Sony, the government is serious in leasing out this plant. That is the only way out that these things can work well. Because initially we were there. When the government contracted the management in Sony through the Bukatek, Mumias through the Bukatek, Chemelil through the Bukatek, Moroni through the Meta, things were going very well. Farmers were well paid, workers were well paid, suppliers were paid, and the business around those communities were thriving. Today, you go to Mumias, it is dead. Come to Chemelil, it is dead. So one way that we must all agree is that this aspect of every effort the government is making, people goes to court. As at now, as much as we are heading into the leasing, they are still pending court cases. And my organization and KESGA, we have already tried to reach out at these people who took leasing to court so that they can be able to remove these cases so that we can start in a clean sheet. But besides that, Abdi, it didn't just happen all of a sudden. Like when you were in Sony, they are trying to resist the leasing. The same people in Sony, farmers are in arrears of 800 million. Workers are in arrears of 1.2 billion. You get me? And they were also asking the President to give them money for cane development. What has happened, all of a sudden, there could be poor recoveries, but all 800 million, you received the cane, you milled, you sold sugar. There could be poor recoveries. We can give benefit of about 200 million. You get the point? But a whooping 800 million, where did this money go? And they also have huge acres of land. Nucleus in Sony, nucleus in Chemelil, nucleus in Nzoia. This is their own internal generative fund. Where did this money? So we still stand with the President that as much as he's bringing the money, the people who are involved in this catastrophe must face the full force of the law.
Who are the people in this case?
This is what we are trying to say, that the President the team of auditors should be sent to Sony, to Nzoia, and find out the truth.
So the millers, the management of the
management of the millers, the governance has been the biggest problem. So the previous managing directors of all these factories, as money is coming in, all of them should be given leave so that investigation is done, proper audit is done and verified. How did Sony accumulate a whole debt of 800 million? Chemelil is due about 1.something million. So Moroni the same. So on that, is a plus. Two, on the point he was coming about. Where we are today, what needs to be done is that we need to have a single database. That is what can definitely help us. The issue of the finances institution, if I go to borrow in Cooperative Bank, I have defaulted. The records are there. I don't access any other loan elsewhere. You get me, Mheshimiwa Wange? So the aspect of this zoning, I'm coming to it, was purely protecting the government on mills. The same government all mills across the board are what have pulverized farmers. He has gone around. The crisis in Sony, the crisis in Mumias, the crisis in Miwani. This aspect, this elephant of zoning was protecting the government millers who were actually not paying the farmer. They were not paying the workers. They're not paying the suppliers. So on us, as a representative of the farmers, we are saying no to any form of zoning.
Okay.
Where am I to summarize? For example, in Nyando, Mheshimiwa, as much as you tell us we are under that region, here is Chemelil, which is doing, at the maximum, they're doing 2,500. Moroni at maximum are doing 2,500. Kibos is a new mill, is doing over 3,000. You get the point? These factories, because of inefficiency, constant breakdown. So in Nyando Sugar Belt, if we go that way, we are disadvantaged. Because most of the time there's breakdown in Chemelil, there's either breakdown in Moroni. You get the point? Okay. Then Kibos remains alone. It cannot. And
he increased the number to 5, according to the bill, to forestall such circumstances where you overburdened the remaining 1 miller, for example, as you have said.
Yes.
Because you have talked largely about the availability of cane.
Yes.
But you have cited gross mismanagement of these millers. Honorable Wangwe, then talk to me about this, because you have cited 3 critical pillars in the formulation of that bill, which now has been passed by the National Assembly. Civil society, the farmers, a representative here who are very key, and then the sugar millers. And it does state also in the bill that a person shall not operate a sugar mill or jaggery mill unless he or she is a holder of a current license issued by the Kenya Sugar Board, a very critical component here, upon recommendation by relevant county government for that purpose. Talk to me about this gross mismanagement of these millers, then, Honorable Wangwe.
Thank you very much. And maybe before I answer that, Ayub, allow me just to set the record very straight for my brother, Etiang, that the confinement of catchment areas is for day-to-day running. Under extraneous situations, that is why you are at the board, you can cross over, you can discuss with your board member. But on day-to-day management, for effectiveness, you are going to exist as a catchment. But that does not close you with that you live there forever. You can cross over on engagement with your colleague director. So that leeway is open. Okay. And for what Ayub you've asked, I want to put it very clear. For you to be able to regulate or to control the industry, you must have something to lean on and say, this is what will empower me to put you in shape. What is happening today, the issue of poaching. An organization or a miller goes to Soni in South Nyanza, 200 kilometers, and ships can from Soni to, an example, to Western Kenya, where I have a factory like Butali or West Kenya. What is it that this miller is going to benefit? Shipping cane 210 kilometers from South Nyanza all the way. Okay. There must be something that is going on which is not known up on the table, something below the table. So for us to be able to cushion a farmer or regulate the industry, we want a miller who can lay bare the kind of business he's involved in. And Sugar Board is now the authority which is going to license that miller. And one of the issues we'll be looking at is, how are you setting up your own estate? Are you setting up your own, are you supporting your estate in terms of do you have enough cane? Are you supporting cane development? How are you involved in cane development? The miller will be coming for resources, the way you heard Charles saying. We have Sugar Development Fund. We will be giving loans for rural roads or access roads. We'll be giving resources for cane development. Are you taking the resources to that region? Yeah. We find a situation where a miller, a live example today, who was given resources for from sugar development, when he bought the machines, they were moved from one zone and went to another. Is that what we want for the industry? Are there good results for that? It doesn't work. And that is why it's important that the miller, the Sugar Board, is the only authorized board or body to give license to either jaggery or sugar miller.
Charles, does that address your problem?
Well, what I also want to chip in is clear that as much as Sugar Board is coming in place, what needs to be brought on board is sanity. For example, in Nyando Sugar Belt today, we have a new factory called West Valley Sugar. West Valley Sugar, I said pongezi to them because this is the first African sugar factory in Kenya. built by locals. But now the factory has come in place with the huge tractors, huge trailers, and they have put up weighbridges across the board. What needs to be done, Mheshimiwa? There must be order in the industry. Before you start, you apply to put up a factory. And to operate a factory, Abdi, to put up a factory to be operational, it's not less than 2.5 years. So you must start with cane development. That should be a very clear aspect. You start with the cane development. By the time you come in place, Mheshimiwa, you have your raw material. Today, West Valley Sugar, to me, we are saying we need to be self-sufficient in sugar sector. And today we were 5 factories. Today we are 15 factories, which according to me, we don't need this figure which we have been cheated about, deficit of 200,000 metric tons. It was 200,000 metric tons when we were at 5 millers. Today we are 15 millers, Mheshimiwa. How does this figure remain constant that we still have a deficit of 200,000 metric tons when population has gone high? We were 5, today we are 15. Okay. So what needs to be done, just to complement on what he's trying to say, there should be order in terms of ASU licenses. Where is he going to get his cane? Okay,
so basically it's about working around increasing the productivity level.
Yes.
Which comes to the increase in the number of millers.
Correct.
Yes, Dr. Muto.
The over investment in the milling is an issue, and there has not been commensurate investment in production and production.
They don't balance.
There's no balance. There's no correlation. Balance. So there is need for us to focus a lot more on production.
On production.
Because most of these milling plants stay idle for up to 5 to 6 months in a year. When you close a factory for 6 months, you have workers to pay, you have other, bills and so on. You cannot break even. The other issue is the reliance of the government-supported mills to the treasury for exchequer support. They always want to be bailed out. Every time we want to rehabilitate the machine, the processor is very old, and so there are always reasons. And when you look at these others who are private, they are making money. One was saying somebody is transporting cane for 210 kilometers, and that person will make money. The other one is just picking cane in the neighborhood, and they will not make any money. So there must be serious siphoning of money from these factories, the government-owned factories. So that they need to be investigated. We support the government for supporting the cane industry. First of all, for looking at paying the farmers, because out of the bailing out continuum, the entire continuum of around 117 billion, there is money to be paid to individuals who have never been paid, and that is the money now to the farmers. There is also money to be paid to staff. Some staff members who have been working with these factories have not been paid. So that's another area that the government probably needs to look into, so that we can now retire those fellows and retire or transfer the ownership and have the leasing process. Or probably in the leasing arrangement, we could incorporate that component of clearing with the staff, maybe as a long-term payment. Now, there are a few issues that come out of this conversation which we need to put very, very, very clearly. Focus on the the nucleus farm. Every factory has a nucleus farm. The nucleus farm is where they produce their own cane to basically harvest when they don't have cane from the outing growers. So most of the factories have nucleus farms that they have not appropriately utilized. They haven't optimized on the utilization of the nucleus units that they have. Some have even, you see, 8,000 acres, 20. So sometimes you wonder. And they are government-owned. That is where we need to, first of all, focus. Increase production and productivity of those around the nucleus and then focus on getting more cane from the outgrowers. But the other issue that is also coming in, what the government retired, or rather waived, are the taxes and the debts. That government can waive. And then come in and then clear these other payments. But there were sentimental issues, so there's sentimental attachment of the community to the factory. So during this process of leasing, they came out very strongly and said that if the factory is sited in an area X, it was the people of that area who donated the land for the factory to be sited there, and even for the nucleus farm to be established. So we need to look into, when we are doing the leasing and everything, all the arrangements must focus on also targeting the people of this area, so that they can develop the people, which we agreed upon.
All right. Honorable Wangwe, there is also the always coming up problem of sugar millers that are not producing or are underproducing, but still there is the brand of that sugar on the shelves. How how will this be addressed? Because it's problematic when there's no mailing, yet the sugars are on the shelves.
Thank you, Ayub. Maybe I just have one comment to make on that, but before that, allow me to appreciate and thank the President, most sincerely, for the effectively giving sugar mills this 117 billion, but also wish to take this chance, Ayub, to ask that humbly, let him also consider Mumia Sugar. Mumia was left out on the issues of the 5 sugar mills. Just it's because it's not within the law. It's not a private. It's not a public mill. Yeah. We understand the law the way it is. It's not a public mill. But let him now look at the issues of Mumia Sugar. Mumia Sugar is the giant in the sector, and if it takes shape, definitely the industry aligns. So it's my prayer to the President that let him again put his eyes and hand into the issue of Mumia Sugar and see us through. On the issue which you have said on sugar being on the shelves, yet the mills are closed, actually we are addressing this through the introduction of the inspectors. Yeah. What you are seeing in my bill, inspectors are going to be both in the farm, especially through the devolved units of agriculture, and on the markets, which are going to look at whose sugar is this? Where is it coming from? So we are going to have inspectors who are going to carry out surveillance of the sugar products in the market, so that at no one time we are going to say, this is Cabra's sugar, for example. This is Mumia's sugar, yet Mumia's is closed. Okay. Mumia's opens today, and tomorrow you find 10,000 packets all over. That means that sugar is not for Mumia's. Mm-hmm. So I think that element has been looked into in my bill.
Is it, does it warrant criminality element to the extent that there are players who have been for a long time sabotaging the reviving of the sugar industry to such actions, which are dubious?
Yeah, the bill does not stand alone in law. It works with other laws of the country. Once the inspectors now identify that you are doing a malpractice, there are trade laws which deal with you accordingly. Ours is to make sure that we have identified you as a criminal in that direction, and there are the law of the land will take care. What is important, Ayub, is there has not been anyone in charge of the sugar sector per se to follow up on what is happening in the market. We get something on the shelf, it's written on Cabras, it's written on Mumias, it's written on Zoya, and we take it. But now this time the bill is recommending introduction of inspectors who are going to be both in the field and on the market.
Okay. Yes, Charles, you had a point.
There's something that I would like to support on what Honorable Wango said. We have also strengthened regulation within this particular bill to make sure that the sugar amounts and quantities in the country are very well regulated. And because we know in some countries sugar is a byproduct, so sugar is cheap. The fact that this is cheap, if you allow factories or millers, sugar millers to import sugar, you'll be telling Kenyans to stop producing because they will just import and package. So the bill has barred importation of sugar by the millers. You have to be a third party, not really somebody who is right in the industry to import. Anybody within the industry is not allowed by this bill to import sugar. That's why you get other players to import, and then we can have that sugar appearing without having the brand. Because if the millers are allowed to import sugar, they will basically, some of them will just produce a little, buy a little, and import most of the other sugar and package. So that has been bad.
Yes, Charles.
Yeah, now another challenge that I think needs to be addressed is the workforce in most of these old sugar factories. You go to Zoya, Abdi, the workforce there is about 2,000 workers. You come to Chemelil, it is about 1,800. You go to Sony, about 2,000. You get the point? So this alone, it's eating seriously into whatever the factories are making.
Is there a certain number that they can work with?
That's what I'm coming into. Yeah. The new invented factories, most of them are, you find there are only 400 workers working in West Kenya. Same 400 workers working in Butali. So you look at that difference, Mheshimiwa. What is going out in terms of paying out contracted workers or permanent and pensionable workers, it is huge. So that has to be addressed. How do you cater for that so that we have a minimum number workforce in the sugar factory. That is very important. Then again, the old ideology that he went across. When you go to Sony, they are resistant. They are saying Sony is ours. By the time these parastatals were being put in place, the objective by then was to stop rural-urban migration. The objective was not to make profits. So we cannot continue to live in that old ideology that Sony belongs to us. You get the point? If Sony belongs to you, then every product, whatever, supply it, buy it yourself. Why must you have to sell it out? So those are some of the old culture which you went round and you found. You get anywhere, they tell you the land belongs, and it's very sensitive. We must have land for us to invest. You cannot invest on air. So those kind of old ideology, I believe we must change on them, that we cannot continue to remain the way we are and say this belongs to us. It was to create a job when you are not able to make profit. You get cane, you supplied, you mill, you sell sugar, you are not paying the worker, you're not paying the farmer, you're not paying the supplier. Tomorrow you come to Exchequer, public fund that be borrowed and we paid. We cannot continue to exist in that aspect. So that is number one. Number two, the issue of importation. I agree that initially we thought if you give the millers, they have targets that they're supposed to produce. Okay. If they fail to produce that, then they should be able to be given that leeway to import. But you give them that leeway, then they don't produce. Their main objective is to mill. They don't now focus on milling. They focus on importing and rebagging. So that was our proposal, that initially we used to have Kenya National Traders Corporation, whereby all these millers will sell their sugar on a single desk, or use Kenya National Traders Corporation to import the deficit and possibly share. But now that we are moving out of government, we are now going private, I think that should be automatically taken care of.
Yes. Yes, Honorable. I'll come to Dr. Mutunga. Just hang on. Yes, Honorable.
Mine was just also to complement what Honorable Mutunga said about the leasing. And I want to thank the President that approach will also help the industry. When you look at what is happening, my field and what he's talking about, the labor force, a new 3,000 TCT factory will hardly go for more than 3 to 5 billion shillings to set up. So if we can get some, invite good investors to make an input of that kind of investment and get a machine which can run effectively. For example, if you get one for Nzoia Sugar, for that matter, what is happening in Nzoia today, the ratio of cane to tonnage of sugar is way out of this world. They are putting in about 15 tons to give you 1 ton of sugar. A new machine will be able to do maybe about 6 to 8 tons to give you 1 ton of sugar. 3 times better than the
So call for more investments.
Yes.
And
the new technology.
And the new technology, new equipment, new technology, good investment. We are home and dry. What our farmers want is payment. Whoever is going to make the money, let him make the money and go. But as we want, make your money, but pay us. Pay our farmers. Pay our boys and girls who are working for you. That is what we need.
Okay. And Dr. Mutunga, what then do you attribute the challenge of welfare? Because it was a treasure to be a sugarcane farmer in this country, and today that is a distant reality. It has so quickly evaporated. And you understand, for example, the chain of persons down the line who farmers or a farmer does support. All this because I'm looking at the 117 billion breakdown which was written off. They are largely in bank loans, tax arrears, penalties, farmers and employees dues. They owe banks 65 billion Kenya shillings, 50 billion in taxes and nearly 2 billion in farmers dues. Here is where the problem is, the 2 billion Kenya shillings in farmers dues. Why has it proven to be problematic to pay farmers?
Abdi Kandi, the greatest problem we have in this country are this unknown ghosts called cartels. Agriculture is the most infested by those cartels. You look at the sugar industry, the coffee industry, even the tea industry, all the industries. The idea is that they can make easy money by doing nothing, just manipulating the processes and interfering with the flow of activities. They can make money. Cartels have survived in the industry a lot. Now, that is one of the reasons why the sentimental attachment to land.
Yes.
And the need to get new players so that we can drive out the cartelism is why we are to propose to the government to go on leasing instead of privatization. Because privatization would have had its own issues.
Yeah.
And that is why it has not worked so far. Because privatization means you're selling out. But leasing, you can go for a specific period of time, at least a maximum of 25 years. And in this case, you can lease for 10, 15, 20 years. You can also regulate the leasing in a way that it is great. You can manipulate it in a way that is going to help you to check what is happening with the people. Are people being paid? Are farmers being paid? Is the industry growing? Are we making profit and so on? Now, sugar that is branded, I just want to come to that briefly because to touch on what my colleagues have said. You have gone to supermarkets and found, like when there used to be Nakumat, you find Nakumat sugar. Where is that sugar produced?
Because Nakumat
Where does Nakumat have a farm to produce the sugar? Which factory mills Nakumat sugar? So we would like the government to check into that aspect. When you see a supermarket, an outlet, branding a commodity by their name, it means there's something wrong that is happening. Let us have the producers brand the commodity and go with it. Some of the commodities can even be branded, can have geographical indication. For instance, Mumia Sugar used to sell because the word Mumias was a mark of quality. Whenever you saw Mumias, you would buy Mumias first before you go for anything else. When Mumias collapsed, so the hope by the Kenyans also went down. The problem of interference with management, the flow of resources within the sugar milling, and that's where the problem has been. That's where siphoning of the money has been. That's where government millers have not performed because they have ways of, and there is a hope that the government will come in and build them. So what we have proposed clearly is that if somebody can make money by privately milling this sugar, and you as a government entity cannot make money, just leave that process to the private players. Sure. Let the private sector take over and pay the farmers and promote this to the industry so that we can stop also import, we can have import substitution.
And does it not place, if we opt for the private sector, that it then is, an indictment of failure in management, isn't it?
Government is not good in doing business. Yeah. Government is good in regulation, setting the environment for the private sector to take over. And I think that's what the Kenyan government should focus on in most of these industries. Yeah. When the government does the work itself, then there is that, there is a lot of inclination in terms of getting more people absorbed into assisting people. That doesn't help in business. He has said some factories will have 400 workers, others will have 1,200 workers. Same size, same capacity. Okay. So the one with 1,200 workers will be paying 3 times the one with 400. So that's what it's not really in business. Yeah.
Coming to the point, Honorable Emmanuel Wangwe, of this bill getting a wholesale support in Parliament, and we have seen also the chair of the Departmental Committee on Finance and National Planning meeting farmers in Western region. Dr. Mutunga, your committee, of course, the proposal of the bill coming from Kakamega County himself and Navakholo constituency. Critically, it seems there is a focus on what has been a sector that has failed because of management and thereafter having consequential effects of this having a bearing on the welfare of farmers. Honorable Emmanuel Wangwe, before we take the views of the people, how is this then the final fix to what has been a perpetual problem for a very long time?
Thank you very much, Ayub. First, allow me to thank Dr. Mutunga in his capacity as the chair of the Committee on Agriculture. He took it up to himself and helped me to process the bill up to the last minute on the floor. He went to the field and managed it. I also want to thank the president. When he was in Western Kenya during his last tour, his other tour, not last, but his other tour, and he really made a lot of input in terms of supporting what was going on, because this bill complements the president's effort to revive the sugar sector. having been the Minister for Agriculture, he knows the impact the sugar sector has to the farmers. Therefore, what I would say is that this bill is facing this appreciation because of the time it has come on the table. It's coming on the table when both the government is keen to revive the sector, and it's like fully being supported by the government to make sure that the entire region of Western Kenya, which is putting in place Nyanza and Western, and all the sugar producing zones in the country, being appreciated to make sure that the sugar as a sector picks up. So it's a bill whose time has come, and that is why you can see it receiving that kind of appreciation across.
Yes. Okay, Charles, before I take the feedback.
Okay, last, I think, Abdi, another important component here is that of late there has been very low yield across. And that, as you are aware, that AFA had to come in and close all the factories in Nyando Sugar Belt and Western. Good enough, the situation is... What
were the reasons for the closure?
Actually, the reason for the closure was that there was no enough mature cane to mill. You look at the capacity in which Kibos was put at, was to mill 500. Today, Kibos has improved their milling capacity to almost 4,000. Chemelil was registered to mill about 1,500. They improved their milling capacity to about 2,500. Same with Moroni. So that has to be. So there was premature cane. There was a lot of cane, but underage cane, 14 months and below. That forced the AFA and Sugar Directorate to close these factories for the time being, and that is also in touch with the removal of the levy, which was also supporting cane development. But the bigger picture that we are looking at is that as at now the rain has come. Okay. We also need to venture into irrigation, and that is what we are waiting for the president when he comes to launch the Koru Soin Dam. Yeah. I think that will be a big plus to the entire Nyando Sugar Belt, because they will be able to irrigate the entire area of Nyando Sugar Belt for the purposes of increasing productivity.
Thank you. Gentlemen, I'll come with a final round of your closing remarks. Let's sample the feedback. The hashtag on X, formerly Twitter, is Daybreak. The SMS code is 22422 at Citizen TV Kenya and at Ayub Abdikadir. Engineer Lazaro says radical changes should include monopolized sugar import license to strict millers, what he meant. This is the only sure way of protecting the industry and to eradicate artificial shortage of being caused by the corrupt barons. Vested political interests, poor management and corruption have made Kenya's sugar industry so inefficient that the country's goal of attaining self-sufficiency in sugar production will remain unattainable for a very long time. Next up, Okelo Mwalimu says revival of the sugar industry does not require many bills and policies. What's needed is goodwill from both levels of government and prudent utilization of resources by management of the ailing sugar companies. However, it has reached a point where we have to consider privatizing the sector. Again, Engineer Lazaro says sugar import license should be strictly monopolized to millers in order to protect jobs from the sector and to eradicate artificial shortages being caused by corrupt barons. This is the sure way of protecting the local industries. And Bob Otieno says the buck starts and stops with politicians who come from the sugar production areas who he says collude with the sugar cartels to kill the industry at the expense of poor, hard-working farmers. Brian Chemwa says we need to encourage private investments to modernize the sugar mills and infrastructure, upgrade machinery, improve efficiency, and adopt sustainable practices can increase productivity. These endless songs on the revival of Mumia Sugar is still a nightmare. Sir Nixon Nugure says we need our local sugar industry to be strong and vibrant to keep all the local businesses it supports going. The government must bring down cartels that sabotage the industry in favor of lucrative imported sugar deals. Remy Bhutia says the root cause of all sugar sector challenges is corruption, through which cartels thrive, and importing illegal sugar and mismanagement of factories, which include flawed tendering processes and inflated cost of inputs and practices. Those are your views here on the broadcast, and we, of course, you can keep them coming. We'll be sampling them in the course of this broadcast as well as we proceed with the discussion here on Daybreak, and we thank you for your time. Yes, Dr. Mutunga, you had a point.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that what we need in this country is to explore the areas and also increase productivity within those sugar growing areas right now. We realize that in Transmara you can get up to 167 metric tons per acre. In coast you can get between 140 and 160, which means, and they don't have the best of varieties, so there is potential for us to produce enough sugar in this country. What we need to focus on is something like irrigation, because we need water for you to improve production and productivity. You need a good seed, so the variety issue is important, so the research is important, and then the soil health. Soil management, testing, and giving the right nutrients. That's really what we need.
And talk to me then about, I'll come to Honorable Wangi and Charles, Honorable Dr. Mutunga, about the question of food security. Because when you talk about the irrigation schemes that ought to be undertaken, we had Galana Kularu project, and it largely failed because of systemic corruption and government officials seeking the 10% cut, and even leading to the pullout of the Israeli company. Can we sustain ourselves? Can Kenya, be food secure by its own self without importation? Because if you look at the KRA, that is a report on when it did the first quarter of this financial year, September, October, November, July, September, October. The question of import clearly was a big concern, more than 600 billion Kenya shillings on importing food. How can we sustain ourselves?
We can sustain ourselves in food production. Look at a small one-time intervention like what the president did last year, by bringing down the cost of fertilizer, and then the absorption of that fertilizer into base production. The estimated production this year was around 60 million metric bags, 90 kilogram bags of maize. We need about 50, which means we have 10 million, which we can sell, if those statistics are anything to go by. So it tells you that we can produce enough. We have sufficient capacity, we have sufficient land to produce enough. Look at the oilseed industry. We actually chose a policy decision to import. I want to thank the government for the president for the focus he has in agriculture, because in his transformation agenda, agriculture is core. We are focusing on improving on the varieties of oilseeds, coming back to produce oilseeds to have import substitution, because we spent about 120 billion shillings importing hand oil just to package and sell to Kenyans, when we can produce this oil and support more than 2 million Kenyans in that particular process. So we can relocalize our jobs here, we can bring back the money. We don't need to sell, to buy things like oil, which Kenyans can produce. And oilseeds are related closely to livestock feed industry. The oil, the waste product from, or rather the byproducts from the oilseed industry, supports the dairy feed industry as a core, constituent of the feed. So we need to focus on some of those things, and then the country can clearly and easily feed ourselves. Because our food security is basically locked into maize production or cereal production. Two things we need to do: increase on that maize production through productivity enhancement and cost reduction by the farmers. And secondly, substitution. Promote the other alternatives, which we can do some blending to make sure that Kenyans can get their energy source of feed easily and cheaply.
Okay, Dr. Mutunga, before you go to Honorable Wangi and Charles, because this is very key, and since you chair the Agriculture Committee, one expected a part of the President's speech tomorrow when he addresses a bicameral sitting of the National Assembly and the Senate is expected to be agriculture. And you have mentioned that it has been an important pillar in the plan, that's his manifesto. And he has constantly, and so did the government, praised the fertilizer subsidy for increased crop production in the country and the yield. But in many aspects, food prices remain high. How can you bridge these two differences?
Yeah, the food prices are coming down. Especially we look at the 2 kilogram packet of unga, it's actually coming down. The idea is that we have not completely mopped up the costly maize that we had. In North Rift today, and that's why the government has decided to intervene in procuring maize at 4,000 shillings per 90 kilogram bag to basically recreate the defunct strategic food reserve under the current name of National Food Reserve. The government has put in the current supplementary budget 2 billion shillings to buy maize, and I think there will be an effort to put in more. What this will do is to stabilize the prices at around 4,000 shillings a bag. Right now, some people are selling, some farmers are selling at 2,800 up to 3,200. Yeah. So if it's coming from 5,800 to 2,800 is like half. In that case, the packet of unga should actually be ranging around 120, 130. But that means has not filtered all the way. What we need to check, which is very important for this country, whenever prices of the raw materials go down, the finished product prices rarely go down. I think the government needs to rein on some of these processors so that they may ensure that the consumer gets the benefit of the reduced cost of the raw materials that are being used to produce the consumable goods. Okay. I'm talking about a packet of unga. If we can get maize at 4,000, why is the price not moving to around 140, 150 or 130? Okay. Because if it was at 220 shillings when the price was 5,800 for an 90 kilogram bag, and it has now moved to around 3,200, let's say 4,000. So we have our whole 1,800 cushion, which should be transferred to the consumer. I think the mechanism to do that must be very seriously followed by the government. That's one that task the government really cannot escape from. We have always escaped. Even when the petrol, the international prices go down sometimes, you realize that the consumer prices in Kenya just slowly, a little. It doesn't go up as much as it is going. There is something that the government needs to do.
And then the challenge about that is even with regards to the oil prices is the shifting of the goalposts. I mean, you had yesterday the energy cabinet secretary. Now it's the Israel-Hamas war, which might lead to, again, an increase in the fuel prices in the country. And yesterday it was one of the major issues that you parliamentarians had even raised with the president, saying that it's now hard even to face the electorate because they are really complaining about the cost of fuel in the country, which largely again informs even for the cane that we have talked about to be transferred from the farm to the mill. We still need the question of fuel because it informs every aspect of our economic life. Yes, Charles, you had a point.
Yeah, my main need to the presidential address tomorrow, number one, is consider refinancing the farmers' organizations. Because we realize that the farmers, without the farmers, we have no industry. He has done good to try to bail out the arrears of the farmers. But the farmers' organizations, we also have our own challenges. But my appeal to His Excellency the President is to consider refinancing the outgrowers company, the cooperative societies and cooperative unions, which in one way or the other were given loan. Their members applied cane to the factories. The factory failed them. In other way, they didn't. They were not paid back. So refinancing of the farmers' organization, I think, to me, will be a key area that needs to be looked into. Then the issue of diversification for our millers, for the purpose of farmers being paid the byproducts. I sit in the pricing committee. And at one point, we were almost there that we will be able to share the byproducts that comes from the sugar cane of the farmer. That is the molasses that they use to make other products, which is very lucrative. That needs to be taken care of. Then the issue of procurement laws. I want to tell you the biggest loophole that has brought all the government parastatals down is the wrong laws in procurement. It's a high time this needs to be reviewed because you find what a private person is procuring in market, Mheshimiwa, at 5 million. The government are procuring at 10 million. The procurement laws needs to be reviewed because it is one of the biggest loopholes that is bringing us all down. Then let us have the president has really subsidized in terms of fertilizer. Is not much enough in the sugar sector, but at least that has improved. That has been repackaged. Right now we have a German investor, which is landing in this country tomorrow, and we'll be having a courtesy call at the Cabinet Secretary for Energy and Agriculture, and they are targeting to put up a fertilizer factory. Homa Bay Biogas project at somewhere called Opapo in Homa Bay. So that will be a big plus. My challenge is, let us have a conducive environment for our investors. I've been part and parcel of this team. There's been, I call them cartels at Kilimaus.
Okay.
That for them to give an amicable room, Mheshimiwa, for the investors who are coming in to give us, to invest billions and billions of money, there are a lot of shortfall that does not. So to me, that will be another area that we need to give humble atmosphere to our investors. To me, in the sugar sector, this will be a big plus because this German factory will be using the sugarcane tops and the hycine in the lake to put up a fertilizer plant, which will be reducing cost of importing the fertilizer of this country. So to me, that is a big plus to call upon that to be fully on.
Yes, please.
Mine was just to say that my bill in overall looks at the entire sugar sector in totality, and if it is well supported, the way it is getting the support from the government, we see a scenario where the sugar sector is going to get back to its lost glory. And Ayub, when you look at even the comments which were made by Lazaro, Otieno, and Ndugure, addressing the issues that with regard to what we have discussed, I would just want to single out like the one which was raised by Ndugure on the cartels. It is not good to go forward alone. Let's just also move forward, yes, but what happens to this money that the people misappropriated and they are within this country? Let those people who stole the money belonging to the sugar millers, who stole money belonging to the sugar farmers, be brought to book. Because they are within this country. They are known. We've not seen them being prosecuted. Let us support the sector, yes. We want the president to move on with the spirit, yes. But the institutions, ESCC, Office of the DCI, and any investigating agency should look into the past of these millers and bring these people to book. Thank you.
And of course, they are the mandated bodies that are supposed to do the investigations and bring someone before a court of law, then thereafter justice is administered. And this is in relation to, of course, the statements made by the president in regards to also this, the sugar matter, about Mambo de Matatu question, which has largely become nowadays a thematic area across board and largely adopted by the political class. Honorable, as we finish up finally, Honorable Dr. Mutunga, talk to me then about the irony here of Kenya being amongst the sub-Saharan African countries that have a proper portion of arable land, yet half of its population is food insecure and largely applies across the continent. Is this largely the problem of governance?
I think it has largely been a problem of focus and priority. We've not prioritized agricultural sector as one of the main, supporters of this economy. And as a major productive sector that can actually bail out most of the Kenyans in several ways. One way is ensuring that we have food and nutrition security. Secondly, increasing employment for Kenyans through various levels of transformation. We have not processed our products effectively. We've not done agri-processing, as we have actually been bypassed by our neighbors. Tanzania and Uganda are way ahead of us, and we used to be very far ahead of them when we used to have East African industries here, and then we could sell our products there. On the other hand, there is the issue of increasing on the foreign exchange. Bringing in the foreign currency, we would stabilize the dollar better if we are selling more than actually buying more. So agriculture sector is key. You cannot effectively describe Kenya without talking about the agricultural sector. You would be talking about something different. So we haven't invested in agriculture effectively. Under the African Union Comprehensive African Agriculture Development Program, under the Maputo Declaration of 2003, we had already committed ourselves to give a minimum of 10% of the national budget to agriculture by 2008. We have not reached 4% as at now. So we are still struggling around there. And there are some classical examples. Of course, this 10 years later was translated into the Maputo Declaration, which has specific targets. Yeah. And then the whole arrangement has been, they have identified the measurable indicators, and they are trying to do assessments every 2 years. It's called biannual assessment on the performance of the economy vis-a-vis, the performance of agriculture vis-a-vis the performance of the economy. Okay. We have seen the countries that have been able to meet the Malabo commitments doing better, growing at double digit. A classical example is Rwanda. Rwanda is doing extremely well. Okay. The Ethiopia the other day exceeded 10%. We are just saying 10%, but very well distributed. Maybe 2% to research, and the rest can go on. If we focus on agriculture, clearly, we have a lot of land. We also have a lot of water. Only that when you get the water, it becomes a crisis to us. Like right now, there's a lot of flooding in certain areas when we could have organized ourselves and harnessed this water and use it when it is dry. So we would have irrigated most of our land, we would have produced enough land, enough food in this country, we would actually be selling to other countries. So we need to look at the potential within agriculture to transform this economy. Yeah. If we basically, even right now, whatever we are producing, if we basically aggregated what we have, like, of course, the government has focused on aggregation parks, agri-food parks, and aggregation centers that have been set up across the country. That will be an eye-opener to this country and to the administration of this country that agriculture is really key. Because what we will be aggregating are mainly agricultural products. Yeah. After aggregation, then we'll be having, value addition. Yeah. And then we shall have solved so many Kenyans. Those who will be aggregating, those who will be identifying and ensuring the product is ready, those who will be qualifying those products, those who will be transporting those products, those who will be actually transforming, those who will be producing the branding and packaging materials, and those who will be selling and merchandising activities. So there is a lot of employment within agriculture, which we as a country have not focused on.
Honorable Wangwe, generally beyond the bill that you have sponsored, generally this is on agriculture, and we have lately seen the commissioning of county aggregation centers by Moses Kuria before he was transferred from his former docket after reshuffle. How does this feed into generally addressing the question of our food security status, which is wanting in many aspects?
Yeah, it is looking at the accreditation centers which were launched by Moses Kuria, my good friend and colleague, former colleague. We look at it's not just about the food, but we are looking at the environment to do with the environment in totality, ranging from provision of employment, food security, looking at how many people are being absorbed at a go. Agriculture is a large-scale employer. Okay. Any kind of manual works, agriculture comes with manual works. You look at those people who will be doing the packaging, those people will be doing participation in the farms, those people who will be doing the farming itself, the professionals in the agronomy sector, from the agronomy sector. It's a whole chain that brings together so many persons gaining from that kind of establishment. But looking at what, coming down to the sugar sector part of it, you look at when the sugar sector is aligned from the top, from the bill, what are the replica effects? The factories are set stable, and when you look at the official employment roll call, as you have said, of 2,000 people, 8,000 people are manually employed. For every 2,000, about 8,000 more. The cane cutters, the loaders, general distributors, general traders, the mechanics. So you look at a whole, a simple trigger to make sure you clean up the problem at the top. It has a very wide-scale replica. Therefore, from where I sit, I want to encourage that let us make sure this bill is brought into effectiveness. Okay. Let it come into action so that our youth who are coming out of school today can have something to do, be it manually as they await what to do professionally. Yes.
Yes, Charles, please.
Yeah, I think the future is bright. Farmers are ready and willing to bridge up the gap of the sugar import and produce much more. What they need and require is, number one, financing. Number two, financing. Number three, financing. The next point I wish also to put in is that as a ministry and the Sugar Directorate, there are various farmers' organizations which are registered and are validly within the sector. Okay. Let us coexist and work collaboratively. Two other organizations that have been constantly going to court, even when the AFA came in to regulate these closures, it was supported by facts and figures. So this aspect of each and every step the government makes, we go to court, that has to be cleared. Then my appeal to the president as he makes his address tomorrow. When you were at the National Sugar Conference, I think that Miwani was not included in the process of leasing. After the presentations we did, the task force committee, which was in Kakamega, handed over that to the president, and finally that was accepted. Our personal appeal is, vile alisema, mambo ni matatu. Okay. Mambo ni matatu in Miwani, all those cases have no basis. They should get those cases, or mambo ni matatu. Finally, I want to say that we are supportive of the government, and sugar industry has created a lot of jobs for our people. The farmers are willing and ready.
Asante. Thank you. Your time is all appreciated. Dr. John Mutunga, Tigania West, Member of Parliament, as well as the Chair of the Departmental Committee of the National Assembly's Agriculture. Thanks for your time. Much appreciated. Charles Atiang is the Chair, Kenya Association of Sugar and Allied Products, and Honorable Emmanuel Wangwe is the Navajo lawmaker who was also the sponsor of the bill passed by the National Assembly and now at the Senate. Your time is all appreciated, and thanks for making time here on the broadcast. And thanks to you too for watching Daybreak, and thanks for your feedback as well on the hashtag X that's Daybreak on X, and the SMS code is 22422. We'll see you again next week here on the broadcast by the grace of God. Thanks for watching. Good morning.